The winter evening smelled of pine needles, frozen iron, and faint wood smoke drifting from someone's fire deep in the forest. Snow fell so thick and silent it felt as though the entire world had been muted. The old abandoned farm, once the backdrop for rosy-cheeked children and sleighs on Christmas postcards, now stood empty, known only to a handful of locals who still remembered the way through the drifts. One weak string of fairy lights glowed in the yard, wrapped around two women like someone had decided to decorate them instead of a tree. Anya had come here to vanish. 3 weeks earlier, her girlfriend of nearly 4 years had left a note on the kitchen table. "I'm sorry. I don't know how to keep breathing for both of us when you've stopped trying." The words were gentle, almost kind, and that made them worse. Anya packed one bag, deleted every social app, turned off her phone, and took the first night train north until the conductor announced a station she had never heard of. She rented the caretaker's cottage on the abandoned farm for cash, told no one where she was, and waited for silence to patch the hole inside her chest. Most nights she sat on the porch step smoking the same cigarette for an hour because lighting another felt like effort. Lita had come here to work, though work had turned into accident. A small festival had commissioned a 5-minute short about loneliness and light. The director's only brief was, "Find somewhere that feels empty but still warm." Lita had driven for hours looking for that impossible place. When the road narrowed to a track and her little car slid into a snowdrift, she laughed at the irony, killed the engine, and accepted she was spending the night. She dragged firewood from the barn, found an ancient kettle in the kitchen, and, because her fingers were going numb, pulled the forgotten box of fairy lights from the trunk, left over from a music video she'd shot the previous winter, and wound them around her shoulders like a glowing scarf. She looked ridiculous and felt slightly less cold. Anya saw the light from the frosted window and assumed teenagers had come to drink cheap vodka and smash bottles again. She pulled on the dead owner's enormous coat, grabbed the heavy flashlight, and marched out ready to scare someone smaller than herself for once. She found a stranger crouched by a fire, fairy lights twinkling against black wool, breath fogging above a tin mug. "Who the hell are you?" Anya asked, voice rough from days of silence. The stranger turned. Short hair poked out beneath a knitted hat, pale strands catching the firelight. Her eyes were the color of wet city pavement at night, reflecting orange flames. "Lita," she said, raising both hands in surrender.
"I'm stuck. I'm harmless.
"I come in peace and with tea." Anya meant to tell her to leave. Instead, she stood there, snow settling on her lashes, watching the lights blink unevenly because one bulb was already dying. Lita offered the second mug without asking. Mint and something sharp that burned nicely on the way down. Their gloved fingers brushed. Both flinched at how cold the other was. "You hiding too?" Lita asked quietly. The question landed like a stone in still water.
Anya stared.
"What makes you think that?" "Because you look like someone who's already said all her goodbyes but forgot to walk away." Anya laughed once, a dry, cracked sound. "Congratulations. You've found the perfect sad girl for your little art film." Lita's mouth curved, not quite a smile. "Actually, I think I just found the person who's going to ruin my film because now I don't want to leave." They talked until the fire burned low and the sky behind the trees turned the color of tarnished silver. Words came slowly at first, then in a rush neither of them could stop. Anya spoke about the note, about waking up each morning for 3 years reaching for someone who was no longer there, about how love had started to feel like drowning lessons. Lita spoke about growing up in a small town where being gay was something people mentioned only when someone moved away, about her ex who said, "I don't care that you're a woman, I care that you're never happy," as if happiness were a switch she was too lazy to flip. When the kettle went cold and the last log collapsed into embers, the fairy lights on Lita's shoulders were barely breathing. Anya stood to go back to her dark house and her darker thoughts. Lita caught the sleeve of the oversized coat. "Wait." Anya stopped. Snowflakes melted on their cheeks. "I'm terrible at fixing people," Lita said, voice low. "I won't promise you tomorrow or pretend I know how hearts heal. But I'm warm right now. These stupid lights are still trying, and I don't want to walk away yet." Can I just stay close until you tell me to go? Anya looked at her for a long time, at the tired half-moon shadows under her eyes, at the way her lower lip trembled, not only from cold, at the dying glow that wrapped them both now because Lita had unconsciously pulled her into the circle of light. I don't know how to let anyone close anymore, Anya whispered. That's okay, Lita answered. I'm good at waiting. The silence between them stretched, soft and dangerous. Then Anya lifted her hand, slowly, as if the air were made of glass, and laid her frozen palm against Lita's cheek. Lita's eyes fluttered shut. Snow kept falling, hushing the world. Their first kiss tasted of mint tea and smoke and unshed tears. It was careful, almost polite, two people asking permission with their lips instead of words. The fairy lights gave one final flicker and died, leaving them in the pale pre-dawn. Neither of them moved to turn them back on. Anya drew back just far enough to rest her forehead against Lita's. Stay, she said, voice cracking on the single word. Just today. Maybe tomorrow. I don't know. Stay. Lita's answer was to slide her arms under the enormous coat and hold on, not tightly, just enough to keep Anya from drifting away with the snow. They walked to the house, when the sky turned the color of weak tea. Inside, they hung the dead string of lights on a rusty nail by the window so the bulbs faced inward, toward the room instead of the night. Lita found candles in a drawer. Anya found two mismatched mugs that didn't feel quite so lonely when both were full. Snow started falling again outside the frosted panes, but inside something small and stubborn had begun to glow. Not fireworks. Not salvation. Just two people deciding, in the quiet after too much hurt, that maybe being careful with each other was a kind of courage too. That was the beginning. Nothing was solved. Nothing was promised. But for the first time in a long while, neither of them was alone with their ghosts. And sometimes that is the bravest love there is.